With club racing, you can estimate the time of arrival of your pigeons almost to the nearest minute, and within 10 minutes the race is pretty much over. With national racing from France, the window of expectancy can be an hour or so, and you're lucky sometimes if you get one within an hour, and if you do get one you might wait an hour for another one, so completely different. With club racing, the pigeons all come through together. National racing, you want individual pigeons.
I mean, certainly I do believe there's a big difference between national racing or classic racing and club federation racing. Obviously club federation racing, you're racing on a weekly basis. And years ago when I used to fly, obviously you're trying to compete and win regularly. That used to put a lot of stress on you and your family by trying to win each week, whereas now I target national racing, and basically I've just one target in the year, which is Tarbes. The rest of the year now I don't even have a clock set, and the difference being is, you know, we don't want to win a club race, we want to win a national race.
I've got two different families of pigeons. My old distance family, which have been passed down through the generations from my dad, which we can actually trace back to the 1950s. They've got the old Westcott and the old Bushart blood in them. And I've also got Sunderland-based pigeons, which are, I've also put performance pigeons into them over the years. They handle differently. My distance pigeons are a bit longer cast, lighter framed. My sprint pigeons, still not big pigeons, but they're apple-bodied and more powerfully built.
There is a big difference, obviously, between a 400-mile pigeon and a 700-mile pigeon. I really couldn't give a genuine, honest answer to what the physical attributes are, or to a mental attitude to those pigeons. I jokingly say to people, my pigeons take 2 days to come from 20 miles, they take 2 days to come from 200 miles, and they take 2 days to come from Tarbes. I don't understand why that is, but it seems that they take a long while to, I don't know, maybe switch their radar on. And I do think that's a mental problem more than a physical problem, because end of the day, as human beings, we all have two legs, but we can't all do the same actions. Pigeons are just the same, they have two wings, a heart, the same. I could handle a sprint pigeon or a middle distance pigeon, and it would handle physically the same as any of my long distance racers. So physically, there's no real difference, I believe, but there must be something in the homing instinct of 700-mile pigeons. They have to have a different radar, because they just will come further. The further you go with them, the more in tune they seem to be. And to answer really honestly, I do not know why that is, but it has to be a mental more than a physical attribute.
I will send my Tarbes pigeons at 2-year-old. I have sent yearlings to Tarbes before. It's 588 miles, and I've timed yearlings before. But I think at their best, they're 2-year-old. Many years ago I raced with my dad, and we'd often say you get a good 3 or 4-year-old for Thursday, which we used to fly on the North Road 500 miles. But we always used to find that a 2-year-old would beat it. So I'd like a good fresh 2-year-old to win Tarbes.
But if you're 2-year-old, you go to Tarbes, and obviously if you're older than that, you've already been to Tarbes, so you go again. And racing pigeons is well, it can be a simple hobby, but you can also make it difficult for yourself. So I adapt the policy that if you're 2-year-old, you go to Tarbes. If you've got it about you, you'll fly it. If you're not, then you won't be good enough.
I usually pair up all my pigeons, the sprint pigeons and the distance pigeons, a weekend after the Blackpool Pigeon Show. This year I tried to do it a little bit later, and I paired up the weekend before Valentine's Day. I let them all rear young'uns. The cocks, that is, I don't always let me best distance hens pair up until later on in the year, but me widow cocks will all rear young'uns, and as soon as the young birds are parted, they'll be trained, and I will look to race them from the very, very first federation races in mid-April.
The racing season never actually starts because it never actually finishes. It's a 52-week process. Anybody who keeps livestock has got to understand that and appreciate it. But if we was to start from the calendar year, i.e. January the 1st, this year, 2012, I paired my Tarbes pigeons up in January at the beginning of the year. I think it was about the 10th or 11th of January. They reared, all depending what hatched in the nest, 1 or 2 youngsters, and went through a conventional process whereby they reared them. The hen was taken away at approximately 17, 18 days. The cock finished the rearing process. When he'd reared the youngster till 25, 26 days old, the youngster was taken away. He was left for 3 or 4 days, not let out at this time, by the way. And then the hen was reintroduced, and the cycle went again, and they sat for approximately 5 to 7 days, and then the hen was taken away and the cock was left on the eggs until they deserted. Once all the process had gone through that, the nest was taken away, the eggs was taken away, and then the cock is what I call on full widowhood, whereas then more training began.
I don't really follow a strict health policy. I'm not the most educated along those lines, but it's a basic system what I would probably use. I'd always vaccinate my pigeons around about December, Christmas time when they're through the molt, and that would be the whole shed. I vaccinate the whole shed every December, and that would include young birds which had been vaccinated earlier on in that year. I would then canker them for about a week, about 3 or 4 weeks before pairing probably, and no more than whilst they're rearing. What I have found whenever I do get droppings tested is that my pigeons do seem to carry worms now and again. I do like to see pigeons out and about, picking about, so whether they do pick up worms, I'm not quite sure. Obviously they do. So I will worm my pigeons after they've reared babies. Other than that, I try and keep medication to an absolute minimum. I'd only then, if I felt the pigeons weren't flying well or weren't racing well during that year, would I then get them tested. And then if they showed that they was carrying anything, I would then get them treated. But other than that, if they're looking well, flying well, I wouldn't touch them during the racing season.
As regarding a health programme, I do not follow a health programme. All I will do is vaccinate my pigeons for PMV at the back end of the season, usually about the 3rd week of November when the molt is completed, and I then use my own eyes. The pigeons will not be treated for anything, including canker, worms, or anything I do not treat unless I have a problem. Last year I used a vet and sent my samples off and I got nothing back from it, so why should I treat? These years ago I went through a lot of processes of multivits, cider vinegar, garlic, but I really don't find any benefits from it. So my pigeons, unless I have a problem, will be given just clean water 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. But if I've got to emphasise, if I have a problem, then I will treat for it, but I won't treat on a routine, regular basis.
After the race season, again, I don't treat for anything at all, unless of course I believe they've got something, which, to be honest with my old pigeons, they very, very rarely get ill. Regarding paratyphoid, I don't treat for it at all. The reason being is probably coming up about 8, 9 years ago now, I did have an outbreak of paratyphoid in which I had to kill some good pigeons. And what I did then, I treated for it and I also vaccinated for it. But I found that some of those pigeons, which I treated and vaccinated, still got it. So if I do get any signs of paratyphoid now, I just top straight away, and I believe that's the only way to get rid of the disease.
As regarding preparation for my birds, I start the programme at the beginning of the season. The real problem we have is in the UK now, we're starting to race far too early in the season. We're now starting, the first week of April, which is winter, and it is incredible. We then stop racing by the end of June, just when we're getting warm weather. So my pigeons will start approximately the last week in April. Now we're usually probably at the coast by then. So this year my birds had 3 coast races with my local club, local federation. Then they had 1 preparation race with the North Midlands Continental Club. There is then a gap of 3.5 weeks to Tarbes. In those 3.5 weeks, my cocks were basketed twice, normal procedure as I would take for a club racing, but just given a training toss of 40 mile the following day. That was just to keep the cocks motivated to their hen. Not for the distance, not for the race, the flying time, but just to have them knowing that when they come home, their hen is there, just for motivation. Last year, I didn't do that, and I had a problem with exercise. There was exercising for nearly 3 hours at a time, just couldn't get them out of the sky. This year, I've changed that policy, and the training toss has motivated them more to come into the shed than just exercising around the skies, chasing collared doves and everything that would fly by them.
The hardest thing I find about Tarbes is not actually the Tarbes race itself. I find the preparation is the hardest thing. Get them to the race point. You need to get those pigeons in the condition to be able to fly 14, 16 hours. Now to do that, they need a couple of early channel races. Sending them to them channel races early in the year when the weather's cold or easterly can be very, very tough. But the pigeons need to go there to get the necessary fitness under their belts. So I quite often joke at the club, Tarbes isn't a problem. I can send the pigeons to Tarbes and generally get pretty good returns. Getting them to Tarbes is the problem. During the winter, I will look at what pigeons I've got, and I will pretty much set out a programme for that pigeon. I will know exactly what race that pigeon wants to go to. Obviously, during the race season, if things don't go to plan, you have to change the way you change which race you're going to send that pigeon to. But I've pretty much got a good idea in my head what race that pigeon is going to be laid out for. And so yeah, I will pick out that pigeon's race in the winter before. My selection for Tarbes pigeons then is based purely on the bloodline. My sprint pigeons will go to the sprint races, and I'll try and push the ones which don't do quite so well, perhaps up to bird rate 500 miles, but most of my good sprint pigeons will only go up to 300 miles. But if they're bred for Tarbes, even if they're winning the short races, they will go to Tarbes. My Tarbes cock this year would have had about 5 inland races, starting from mid-April. I then picked out 2 channel races for him. He went to Tours, 300 miles, had a week off. Then he went to Nealt, 375 miles, in which he had a 12-hour fly. Tarbes was then 3 weeks after Nealt, and with my widowed cocks, I like to keep them flying, keep them moving. I don't like them to go too long without having a race. So even though he had a 12-hour fly at Nealt, he came back in good shape. So the following week, he went back to the inland race at Poole, we had another little 2-hour fly, and then he had 10 days off before basking for Tarbes. But he still kept his regular hour fly every day in that period.
I don't have a process of selecting my pigeons. Like I say, it's very simple here. If you're 2 years old, you go to Tarbes. It's simple as that. I don't carry no passengers. If you are not good enough to be in the team, you're gone. And the only way that I can select pigeons is by putting them in the basket. I do not have a big team of pigeons here, so every pigeon has to fly for his perch. There is no selection process at the beginning of season and select them. Tarbes is my main goal, and I repeat again, if you're 2 years old, that's where you're going.
I pre-select my Tarbes pigeons from the moment they come out of the egg. My distance family are 600-mile pigeons, and if it's a distance pigeon, it goes to Tarbes. I used to have 2 different feeds for my sprint and distance pigeons, and I used to have a different section for my distance pigeons and my sprint pigeons. Now I've gone south, I've pretty much got all my older pigeons in one section, so they are now almost fed the same. I've got a section down there where my Tarbes national winner is kept, and in that same section I've got a cock which is one that fed twice inland and had many positions, and I've also got my first and second BBC national at 250 miles, all in the same section, all fed the same. So I've got 100-mile fed winners, 250-mile national winners and a 600-mile national winner, all fed the same. My personal belief is that feeding is important, but the most important thing is the bloodline. Now, I try and keep my feed constant, and with sprint pigeons, I will break them down a little bit more. But apart from that, very similar.
700 miles is a long way. It does take a special type of pigeon. You can have a special type of pigeon, i.e. you can have a Ferrari, but if you put diesel in it, it won't drive very far. I would like to think that I own a few Ferraris, and I'd also like to think I put a good type of rocket fuel in it. Pigeons are different to greyhounds, human beings and racehorses, whereas the protein required for those animals is for muscle mass. It's more of a fatty product that a pigeon or a bird needs. So I like to feed a higher fat content to my birds. This year when they went to Tarbes, I did feel there was quite light in their body. But they obviously have got suffice fats in them to carry them through to do the job. So a small amount of rocket fuel in the Ferrari is better than a tank full of diesel in a Land Rover. My pigeons, I treat them all the same because I like to make life as simple as is possible to suit myself. I don't make a system that suits another fancier and their systems. My system is what suits me. It may not suit everybody else, but it suits me, and I have to make the pigeons suit me. So on the return from the last channel race, very conventionally, the cocks returned home to their hen. The hens was left with them overnight until the following morning, and the hens was taken away. The cocks then remain locked in the loft for the next 2 days, and then I will start the build-up process. Usually if they return on the Saturday, the hens was taken away Sunday morning, and the next exercise period was possibly Tuesday morning. They will have approximately 30 to 40 minutes. That will continue morning and evening for the next week, and I will just gradually build up, and then they will have an hour morning and an hour evenings exercise. The last race, which was with the North Midlands, was from Fougères, which is 320 miles to my loft. On return from the race, I just give them a basic light mixture. It'll consist of red and white dari, safflower, wheat, a little bit of hemp, small seeds that the birds like, and just watch what they eat basically. Some pigeons on the return seem to crave a lot of maize, and I think one of the best ways to judge our pigeons going to recover is put 20 different foods in front of them and just let them pick what they want. because pigeons are a lot better at knowing what they require than what the human being does. We think we're feeding them the right things, and maybe it's not. So if they select what they want, I always found that's the best way to bring them round. And they'll be fed that, as I say, for the next 2 days until I start the exercise period. The exercise period, once it's started, I feed the pigeons 3 times in the morning, 3 times in an evening. It'll be with a jerry mix, then a fix, as I would call it, of fatty foods, and then a feed of widowwood mix. That process will really continue all the way through, but just gradually increasing the amounts as I think necessary. It's no good sitting here telling you that I feed 15 mil of this, 30 mil of that, because every pigeon changes all the while, and my feeding every day changes to suit my eyes. My eyes tell me that a pigeon needs more just by looking at him and watching what he's doing. Some pigeons won't eat certain types of food, so you have to adapt to suit that pigeon. Wing down here will not, under any circumstances, eat paddy rice. I'll just bring that up just to show you that different pigeons have to be fed to suit them. If you wanted to feed him on that mixture, you will not get the best out of him. When feeding my birds after exercise, I do feed them 3 times. Not feed them 3 times as in separate foods, the fact that I give them 3 different foodstuffs. First of all, they'll get a cup of jerry mix. Once they've eaten that, they'll come round and get a cup full of fatty foods, which will contain hemp, it will contain sunflower seeds, etc. And the third spoonful will be a spoonful of Garvo widowwood mix.